All right, so I was watching a movie last night called Inequality for All, and it really, first of all, it was a good documentary. I did enjoy it, but there was a very touching moment in the documentary where they were interviewing a young lady, and they were asking her basically questions about her current financial situation, and she cried. She cried during the interview, and they punched it up quite a bit, of course, for effect. But I think all of us, and I mean like humankind, I think we can all empathize and understand what that's like. Um, she was just being interviewed, and she just said, basically, I have $25 in my checking account. Um, and then they panned over to her daughter who was in the backseat of the car, and the daughter was just kind of downcast and maybe a bit embarrassed. Didn't want to make eye contact with the camera during this exchange. And I know for me personally, growing up, I went through it. Having those financial conversations with my parents and having a real understanding of what our financial situation was at the time. And so I think that affects anyone. And there's been a lot said about the psychology of someone who grows up, poor versus well off, and how that affects you, and blah blah blah. For me, and I've said this many times, and I'll keep telling my story. For me, my parents always stressed in education. My dad primarily always told me knowledge is power. Use your brain. You were blessed with a brain. Use your brain. And so, for me, at a young age, it appeared that money seemed to be something that was a secret, because I knew that there were people in the world who had it, and I knew that for some it came easier than for others, and I did not understand why. And at the time, I just assumed it was some secret that was being purposely kept from me. And that thought process um, was encouraged by others in my immediate demographic circle. And even now today, I see it quite a bit, where, people think there's a conspiracy. And the really cool thing about the movie Inequality for All is that they actually dive pretty deep, at least into the statistics and the numbers of exactly what the economic inequality looks like in the U.S., where it is currently, why it is, and how we got there. And so I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. I think that conspiracy theories are usually born out of anger, distrust, and ignorance. Most things in the world are very simple. Um, it's not complicated at all. Even something as complex as building a rocket ship, it's it's not hard if you know what you're doing. And that's the thing, right? If you're ignorant to it, then of course it seems complicated. Of course it can seem magical. Of course you can create all these scenarios in your mind, about all sorts of weird things, right? Um, even to the point where you can say, well, space is not real. I mean, think about it. Someone who's never been to space, someone who doesn't study space, someone that's never seen space with their own eyes, of course they're going to have those thoughts, right? That space isn't real. Um, and it is just a matter of fact that there will always be, and see, there I go as an American again. There is currently a huge divide between the small number of persons that will have the experience of experiencing space, seeing space, and knowing space. versus the vast majority that will never see space. They'll never see it. Um, and so that goes right into the money thing too. But anyway, I was really inspired to talk about this. I've talked about this before, and I figured there's nothing wrong with updating and upgrading the content. So what you're seeing right here on the screen is a comic book. And I say comic book because it is written like a comic book, but it really is a really great publication, and it is no less no less quality than a college textbook. You know, I recommend this to anyone and everyone that is interested in finance and economics. If you're watching this channel, I know for sure you're someone that's interested in finance and economics, and I promise you, you will get a lot out of this. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I did go through, I think, like one or two chapters in a video long time ago. Today, just going to kind of look at the very first idea because, you know, the more and more that I learned about money and finance and economics and all this stuff, the more I realized just how much people didn't know. So much so that, man, you really got to just get into the ABCs and one, two, threes of it with a lot of people. You know, the young lady in the documentary who sounds like most people, who sounded like my mom growing up, she literally said with tears in her eyes, "I don't get it. I don't understand, you know, what's going on with our money. I don't know why we can't make money. I don't know and why we don't have a savings and why we can't save money." And this was said over and over again, um, interview after interview. And they were asking people, how much money do you make, and what's going on. And I've seen it. I've seen it in my own practice, financial literacy is just, I mean, we all understand that, right? Financial literacy is not great in this country. It can definitely be better. I think there are many of us that are working to make it better, and doing everything that we can to educate and at least put information out so that people who want the information have access to it. So I'm going to go over just the basics here about this. So again, great book, definitely worth a read. It explains the U.S. economic system almost in total. I mean, at the end, if you get to the end of this thing, which as you can see is like 250 pages roughly, you will have, I'll say, a freshman understanding of economics. No doubt. No doubt. No doubt. Of course, if you want to get into the higher levels, I really suggest going to school for it. You can, of course, order textbooks online and read for yourself, but I'll tell you, there is a great benefit of having someone that's been there and done that, that's worked in the industry, that has been in academia, doing the research and stuff like that, talking with you and talking through these topics, and then testing you to make sure you understand them. Because it's one thing to read a book and say to yourself, oh, okay, I get it, right? But then when someone says, okay, well, let's put these theories in practice. Let me challenge you, right? Let me test you. Let me examine your knowledge. And then is when you get a chance to look yourself in the mirror and say, oh, damn, I don't understand this as much as I thought I did. And that is the real benefit of school. That is the real benefit of college and university. And I encourage all of you, if you are interested in a subject, no matter what it is, enroll in a community college, enroll in a university, and get the information, because it's invaluable. It really is. All right, so let's go through this real quick. So, I wanted to before I did that, let me. So the story starts out, and I'm just going to run through these pages. The story starts out, which is really brilliant. You have an island, okay, and there's three people on this island, okay, and what's going on is these guys are waking up every day. They're going out, they're catching fish, they're cooking the fish, they're eating the fish. And we all know fish don't even have to be cooked. So let's just say they're catching the fish and eating the fish, right? And this is what they're doing day in, day out. And what this represents is someone living paycheck to paycheck, which we're all familiar with, right? Where you are making money, you're spending all the money, only to then wake up and make money again just to spend it all again. And I don't think there's many people who envision that for themselves or want that for themselves. Now, with that being said, there's definitely a segment of the population out there that is perfectly fine with that, and there's nothing wrong with that, and that's some of what happens in this book too. Is they discuss that. But for those of you that want more, there's more out there for you for sure. Okay. And so anyway, so again, these three guys catching fish, and of course you understand catching fish is not an easy thing to do, especially without tools, because we all understand that at some point humans had to eat without really having a lot of tools. I mean, maybe a stick, right? But there was a long time before we ever had anything like fishing rods and stuff like that, right? Okay, so that's what's going on. Every day they're going out, they're catching the fish, they're eating the fish, right? And so everything's cool. And like you say, no savings, no credit, no investment. They're living life. They're fine. They're cool. They're full. They're happy. They're good. Nothing is wrong. And if that's the life that you want, more power to you. Be okay with that, right? The problem is what happens if one day you can't fish? What happens if one day there's a storm and it's too dangerous to go into the water? What happens if all the fish goes away? These are very real fears that are ingrained in us as humans that has everything to do with supply and demand. When supply is high, right, we feel okay. We're not fearful. We're not fearful. We're not stressed. We're happy. Everything is good. We have everything we need. It's only when there is a possibility, a thought of scarcity, and that thought is always in our heads as animals, because scarcity is something that we have to be concerned with. What happens if everything is taken away? Then what? Right? And so what happens is this guy starts to think about that, right? Not only that, but, hey, man, is there something I can do to make life a little easier for myself? You know what I mean? And so he has this idea to create a net. Okay, now here's what's interesting. Up until this point, there has never been anything called a fishing net, right? I mean, we all understand that, right? Inventions are new. There hasn't been anything like it ever. And someone creates this thing in their mind and then figures out a way to bring the thought in their mind into reality. I mean, it is an amazing idea and concepts when you really get into the psychology of it, of having this idea in your brain that you can see, understand, and conceptualize, and then use that same brain to figure out a way to bring what's in here into the physical world. It's just, I can go on and on about it. But anyway, so this guy comes up with this idea, doesn't even have a name for it, right? It's just something that he wants to try. The problem is that he's going to spend a lot of time coming up with this net, right? And so the story goes that he's spending time trying to figure out this thing, and he goes without eating. For those of you who are passionate and obsessive about things like I am, it is very easy for me to get caught up into something and forget to eat. And I've had people tell me, I've had people question me. I have questioned myself. Are you crazy? Why are you spending so much time doing this? Why are you putting so much effort into this thing that right now there's no way you can predict that it's going to do anything beneficial for you? And that's what risk is that you have to put forth the effort, the time, the dedication, the work, the money sometimes into something that you can't know is going to benefit you at all. You know, you could talk about maybe loving what you do and enjoying it and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, you don't know if it's going to benefit you at all, but you have to do it. You have to continue to do it. And that's what entrepreneurship is about. It is about taking that risk of saying, I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to do it anyway. And if it doesn't work, you have to be okay with that. You know, whenever I mentor and coach and talk to persons about business and things of that nature, that is always the conversation. And I know when I'm talking to someone with that entrepreneurial mindset versus someone who doesn't have that entrepreneurial mindset, right? Because you have to, number one, take that risk, but you have to also be okay with that risk not working. You have to be okay with that because you can't you can't win without failing, right? And it's very easy for someone to say, well, I know someone who wins without failing, and that's fine, right? Those are the exceptions to the rule, but usually, in order for you to win anything, you have to fail a lot. You know, before you can become the greatest three-point shooter, before you can become the greatest yoga instructor, you have to practice a lot and you have to fail a lot. You can't. It's impossible to start off learning a yoga position with the thought that I'm definitely going to become the greatest yoga instructor the world has ever seen. You can think that. You can have the confidence, but there's no way you can know that when you first learn your first yoga position. You know what I'm saying? So you have to, again, you have to have that time, the dedication, the effort. And so that's what this guy is doing. And in the book, the other two guys on the island, they're talking to him and making fun of him, saying, "Hey man, listen, you over there playing around with sticks and bushes and whatnot. We're about to go fish. But here's the deal. Don't come to me and try to take my fish because you didn't eat." And this is a very, very real thing. I cannot stress the um, the importance of this when you really get down into the gristle of it. So imagine, remember we're talking about scarcity here, okay? So imagine we all have one fish apiece, and we all know that humans will eat other humans if they get hungry enough. There's no question about it. We are animals, right? And so someone is saying, listen, man, you know, I know that you got this idea in your head and you want to do this and you want to do that, and you over here doing this art, or you over here wanting to come up with whatever this thing is. I'm going to work. I'm going to make money. I may not like my job. It may be a shitty job or whatever, but I'm going to go to work. I'm going to make this money. And it's a very natural thing to be afraid, again, of the scarcity and to say, I don't want you not working to affect my supply, right? And this is something that persons talk about when it comes to our social net here in the States. You know, a lot of people say, I don't want to pay for someone else's food. You know what I'm saying? Like, why should I pay for someone else not to work? And so it's a very real thing what's going on here. And so the two guys are like, listen, man, don't ask me for my fish. If you want to stay over there and play with whatever you're playing with, cool, but don't ask me for my fish. And that's something that entrepreneur has to be okay with, right? That entrepreneur has to be okay with not having support. You know, we see so many times, especially on social media and stuff like that, support for small business, support your friend, support the dream, blah, blah, blah. Man, you can't, it's nice to have support. It is. And and maybe I'm not even someone that can talk about this because I think I've had support, but also I don't care about having support. You know, it feels nice to have it, but I don't need it. I'm good enough on my own. You know, if I have my mind set on something, if I think something is going to work, or if I just want to try to figure out something, you don't have to think it's a good idea. I will simply just take it upon myself to do it on my own. And whether or not you think it's a good idea or not really didn't have much effect on me at all. And that's the attitude you have to have. And that's the attitude that this guy had. And I think they named him Abel. Yeah, Abel. But this brings me to my most important point for this whole thing. How do you make money? Underconsume, take risk. Underconsume, take risk. Um, Abel didn't eat. And of course, this is a symbolic story. Um, he went without eating for a whole day. He didn't catch any fish. He risked going hungry in order to try something that he didn't even know was going to work, just a thought, an idea he had. And he went without food, um, and he took a risk. And again, growing up, talking to friends, meeting different people, different places, I realized very quickly that that was one of the big differences between me and a lot of people is that for me, money is more important than temporary discomfort in every case, for good or for bad. In every case, money is always more important to me than temporary discomfort. Um, in the movie Inequality for All, the mom in one of the interviews said that they're paying $400 for child care. I don't know if that was per month or per week or what. And she said, we're thinking about having our daughter walk home from school, maybe getting her a phone to make sure she gets in okay, versus paying the $400. And when I heard that immediately, I thought to myself, yeah, that's what makes me me. Because there is no way. If there's a if there's an option of paying $400 versus the kid walking home, you walking home. Period. I can't ever imagine that even being like a question. You know what I mean? Like for me, that's just automatic. Because again, for me, the money is more important than not only temporary discomfort, but also the risk. Because most people will say, but there's a risk that something can happen. I'm fine with that risk. I am. I'm fine with taking those risks, whether they be risk for mine or people under me. I'm fine with taking those risks because at the end of the day, if something were to happen to that child, it's the parent that's going to feel it. Of course, the child is going to feel it more, but the parent is going to feel it as well. And so it's up to that parent. It's that parent's responsibility to take that risk or not take that risk. And again, we're talking about underconsumption and risk taking. That's how you make money. Um, there's no trick, there's no magic, there's no conspiracy. It's just as simple as that. Talking to my sister years ago, I was really, really surprised and shocked. We were having a discussion concerning diet, and and I asked her if she had ever went a day without eating, and she said no. And that just shocked me. Um, something as simple as that, like literally under consuming food. If you find yourself in financial straits, or if you're asking yourself, well, how can I make money? Start by eating less. Literally, just you know, I have these conversations with children all the time. Um, you know, you can't go more than 3 days without water, but you can go a couple months without food. Um, at least a week safely. You know, um, like that. It's not gonna kill you. Um, doing a week or 2 weeks without food is definitely not the best health advice you can give a child, right? Um, but you can survive a day without food. You'll be okay. Nothing's gonna happen to you. And I am perfectly fine with taking that risk and under consuming in order to save money, because money is that important. And again, this goes back to your priorities. one of the quotes, memes, that I've always saw and liked was, "Don't show me, no, I'm sorry, don't tell me what's important to you. Show me your budget." And as an accountant, I feel that hard, right? Because for me, numbers are everything. Numbers tell the story. Like, I don't care what you say. Show me the numbers, right? If you show me your budget and the majority of money is going here, that is what's most important to you. I don't care what you tell me. Doesn't matter. If most of your money is going there, then that's what's most important to you. And until the numbers show something different, I'm not hearing nothing you saying, right? So again, under consumption. Um, it's as simple as that. And it doesn't matter how much money you're making. Does not matter. I call it monetary discipline, is what I call it. And it's something that I'm just good at for whatever reason. I've always been this way. I can pretend that I don't have the money. I can have $100 in my pocket, but I will pretend I don't have that $100, and I will live my life as if that $100 does not exist, and that allows me to easily save $100. And it's called a budget. What it's called? A budget is saying, okay, I'm going to spend this much a month, and that's it. And when I talk to people about this, the first thing they say is, but, no buts. Discipline. No buts. But some comes up. Okay, so what? I don't care. If something comes up, what are you gonna do if you didn't have the money? You're still gonna figure it out. I mean, just think about that for a second. If you don't have the money, if you literally don't have it, and something comes up, what do you think? The world is gonna end? I mean, I don't. You're going to figure it out. So what you need to do is you need to figure it out and keep your money in your pocket, right? That's the discipline. Now, of course, we're humans. We're not perfect. We all admire and are in awe of those humans that are like super disciplined. For me, it's the burning monk. Um, I've heard stories that drugs were involved and things like this, but as far as I'm concerned, who cares, right? I think the burning monk is the epitome of what we look at when we talk about human discipline. For someone to light themselves on fire and sit there and not move is there's a lot more than what I can say for myself. And we have that picture of the one burning monk, but if you go back and read the history, we know that it was more than a few that did that in protest and actually won what they were fighting for in that regard. So again, the discipline of the burning monk, monetary discipline is what's necessary. Under consumption, that's what it's all about. When people talk about, well, how do you lose weight? How do you gain weight? How do you learn to draw? How do you learn to play the guitar? If you talk to anyone who is an expert in that field, it's always the same answer. There are no shortcuts. There's no magic tricks. There is no conspiracy theories. You just have to freaking do it. You want to play the guitar, you have to pick it up and you got to freaking play. All day, every day. You got to play when you want to, you got to play when you don't want to. Period. And guess what? You have to also underconsume, meaning that let's say you watch TV for an hour and you play the guitar for an hour. If you want to get good at the guitar, you have to watch TV less and play the guitar more. Right now, we can talk about talents, abilities. We can talk about genetics and all this kind of things that bump people one way or the other. That's cool. But at the end of the day, again, you may not be the best in the world at it, but if you want to be good, that's what you have to do. If you want to lose weight, eat less and exercise. Eat right and exercise. If you want to gain weight, you gotta eat and exercise. There's no shortcuts. There's no shortcuts. And I'm sure this happens in many industries. I get it the most in the finance industry just because that's the industry I'm in, where you meet all these people who want a shortcut, and it's like there ain't no shortcut. There's tips and tricks for sure, um, but at the end of the day, you still got to do the hard work. I mean, you got to do something. I have people that come to me and say, "Well, I don't want to pay taxes." I'm like, "That's cool. Here's what you need to do to make that happen." There ain't no button you can press. There's no magic form you can file. Like there's no such thing as that, right? Um, and so again, under consumption and risk taking. I can't say it more. I do want to discuss a couple things um, concerning this subject. Um, Number one, I saw this a long time ago. It's close to my heart. And this is about hobbies and habits, really, right? Because habits are the things that you do. And so when you talk about, again, becoming great at anything, it's not about, I use sports analogies because, it's kind of where my mind is, but it's not about learning to do a windmill dunk is what makes you great at basketball. No, it's learning the very small habits, the fundamentals that make you great at basketball. It's learning the simple crossover. It's learning to turn your hips. It's learning your follow through, right? Once you have those fundamentals, once you make those fundamentals a habit, then you can do things like windmill dunks and all this craziness, right? So when you talk about hobbies, for me, that's what we're talking. We're talking about habits. These are activities that you do day in and day out consistently. Maybe not every day, maybe once a week, maybe once a month, maybe once a year. The point is they're consistent and they're part of your life, right? Um, this thing says one to make money, one to keep you in shape, and one to get you creative. What I'll say is try to in everything you do. I don't care what it is you do. You want that thing to hit these three markers, right? And if you are someone who is creative, like that's what you do on a day-to-day basis, then guess what? Then you need something that's going to exercise the other side of your brain, right? So you need to do something that's going to get you into some numbers, into some concrete something, right? If you're just a natural creative like that, and creative is all you do, then you got to do something to get your other side of your mind going, because that's what this is all about, right? So again, any activity you engage in, and I'm going to talk about business segmentation here in a moment, but um, you just want to make sure that you're hitting these markers in everything you do. Figure out a way to make money at whatever you're doing, even if it's I don't care if it's cooking, taking a shower, cleaning your house. Figure out a way to make some money at it, right? You may not make a dime, but if you are trying, then that one step that you take towards trying is going to get you closer to making money, right? May not be making money in that particular area of your life, but they may bleed over into other areas, right? The point is you have to put forth a good faith effort, right? And then staying in shape, the more you learn about any subject, the more you understand just how connected everything is. And that's the reason why in university, typically, the highest that you can go in any subject matter is going to be a philosophy. Because when you talk about whether it be science, whether it be physics, whether it be literature, whether it be economics, right? At the end of it all, once you get past all the fundamentals, once you get past all of the rudimentary workings, the inner workings of it, at the very top is the philosophy, the overall general conception of this particular subject and how it connects and relates to everything else. And so, no different than, finance is concerned, you have financial health, spiritual health, mental health, physical health, if I haven't said that already. Financial health, mental health, spiritual health, physical health. I get it confused. But anyway, the point is, all those things are connected. There have been many, many, many studies that show that your financial health directly impacts your physical health because physical health costs money. We all know this. We understand this. So those two things got to be in alignment. So let's go through a couple of these. Number one, let's look at spiritual health. All right. So when I give seminars and when I talk to people about this stuff, I like to kind of talk about and think about the history of where we came from as humans to explain where we are. Right. So when it comes to health, the first thing that we did as humans is we figured out spiritual health, right? Religion was humanity's answer to spiritual health, and we figured that out a long time ago, right? And so let's just look at what the definition is, because I thought this was pretty cool. And this comes from a health government website. So spiritual health includes purposeful life, transcendence, and actualization of different dimensions and capacities of human beings. Spiritual health creates a balance between physical, psychological, and social aspects of human life. And Maslow hierarchy of needs is something that talks about this. And basically what it comes down to is understanding your role in life, understanding why you're here. Humans need a reason, right? We need a purpose. When we talk about economics and crime rates and mental health, and they all bring it back to economics. When you feel good about your role in society is usually when you feel useful, right? And the way that we kind of value that in our current society is your job. Is what do you do? What do you provide for your community? Does your community respect you, right? And typically, community respects you if you're doing something useful for the community. We have a lot of respect for people who do things for us that we appreciate, even if it's art. Like we see something, we like, oh my God, it's so gorgeous. I'm so glad that you, the artist, brought this into my life, right? And we respect and we admire those people. Um, Plumbers, electricians. I mean, I can go on and on and on. The point is that gives you purpose. And so a spiritual health, even without a job, can help you understand your purpose and give you that purpose without necessarily having to depend so much on outside um, on outside I can't think of the word right now, on outside help, for lack of a better word, right? We can get that purpose from outside, which is important, right? We can also have that purpose within. And so it's important that we have it within, and then we can appreciate it coming from the outside. All right, so I have another graphic here. Spiritual health is the path to inner peace regardless of the turmoil around you. And I think this is very cogent because, I mean, when you think about what a human is and you talk about scarcity and you talk about, you know, man, living in the wild, wild world that we live in, having inner peace, regardless of the turmoil around you, um, you can't function. It's really hard to have mental health. It's hard to have physical health. It's hard to have financial health if you are being tormented by outside influences. And so spiritual health again gives you that inner peace, regardless of what's going on outside of you. And so that's very important. All right, let's move on to mental health. Mental health is something that is still fairly new. Okay. Um, in the Middle Ages, mental health a lot of times was looked at as demonic possession, and typically we prescribe that those persons go to where? Religion. Because remember, we figured out spiritual health a long time ago. We figured that out, right? Um, and so if you had mental health issues, clearly you needed spiritual health because we didn't know much about mental health, right? That persisted into the 18th century. So we're talking about 300 years ago. Okay? 300 years ago, we thought that mental health had to do with spiritual health. All right. Where's my next one? Man, it was just somewhere. Yeah, there we go. All right. So now, more recently, right, 19th, 20th century. So we're talking about 1900s. We finally, this is 100 years ago, we finally came up with something called the talking cure. But with the talking cure also came electroshock, antipsychotic drugs, and lobotomies. Now, lobotomies aren't done much anymore, but keep in mind that lobotomies were going on as late as, like I said, 100 years ago. So mental health is still fairly new, okay? And the reason why I bring this up is because um, there's only a few. You got spiritual health, you got physical health, right? You got mental health, you got financial health. If anyone can come up with any other healths, please, please, please let me know. I'll be really interested to see what they are. Those are the four that I've come up with. I can't think of anything else. Spiritual health, physical health, mental health, financial health. Um, I can't imagine what else there is. But again, mental health is something that we're getting better at, right? Physical health, we all know that for a very long time, um, we didn't have doctors, we didn't have hospitals, and now most people have access to a medical professional, a medical doctor, right? Now, financial health. This one is even newer, so much so that a lot of people don't have never heard of financial health, don't quite know what it is. Um, but this is it. So financial health is a term used to describe the state of one's personal monetary affairs. There are many dimensions to financial health, including the amount of savings you have, how much you're putting away for retirement, and how much of your income you are spending on fixed or non-discretionary expenses. Think about that for a second. Think about that for a second. If someone were to ask you where your spiritual health is, um, I think a lot of people kind of understand what that means, and I think they'll be able to answer that. If someone were to ask you what your physical health is, again, most people have an understanding of how the human body works, and they can feel, right? They can feel pain, they can feel all these things to kind of explain to you what their physical health is. Mental health, again, is something fairly new. It's something that we've always known about. We've always had this word for crazy and insane and all these kind of things. But more and more now, we're starting to understand, and we have all these different definitions for all these mental, what's the word I'm looking for? Let's say diseases, okay, for lack of a better word, mental states, and so we're better able to explain and understand kind of where we are mentally, and so financially, though, we're still not quite there. The way that we even talk about financial health is not the same way that we talk about mental health or physical health. In this movie, Inequality for All, when they were interviewing persons and talking to them, they literally said things like, I don't know what's going on. They didn't say, I have this problem. They didn't say, I feel this. They didn't say, here are my symptoms. You see what I'm saying? It's almost as if, like, imagine having multiple personality disorder before multiple personality disorder was a thing. Like, how do you even describe what's going on with you, right? You, you can maybe explain it to somebody, but the way you talk about it, the way you discuss it, is going to be completely different um, after you now have this medical definition of what multiple personality disorder is, or bipolar disorder or depression or all these things. And so financial health, I think, is even further behind mental health. But again, we're seeing strides. We're seeing things happen to bring us into um, this understanding of financial health and what it means and how to talk about it. Right. So I encourage you, again, if you're watching this, 9 times out of 10, you're someone who's interested in economics and finance. So think about your financial health, and and maybe let's try to come up with some terms that we can use to describe certain financial states. Because as of right now, all we really have as an American culture is check to check. We all know what that means. That is a financial state, is what that is. It's not a symptom, but it is. It's kind of like saying you have depression. It's a diagnosis, right? Your diagnosis is your check to check. But there's a bunch of diagnoses out there that we don't have words for. And so we have to not only come up with a way to say what our financial state is, but we also have to be able to recognize the symptoms of that financial state and also have a diagnosis for that financial state. One of the things that I'm interested in, I've been interested in for a very long time, is money management. And so this is a really nice chart that kind of gives you an idea of what I'm talking about when I say this. You know, when we talk about spiritual health, physical health, mental health, there are things that we can do ourselves, and there are things that we want to reach out to professionals for. And I think, again, you know, we pretty much all have access to spiritual health advisors and persons that can help in that realm as far as like churches and things like that. Physical health, we pretty much all have access to a doctor via emergency rooms and things of that nature. There's 24-hour clinics in a lot of places. And mental health, again, we're getting there. You know, just recently, companies started adding mental health to their insurance packages for employees, but still, so many don't have access to mental health care at all. I mean, I don't know of any 24-hour mental health care facilities other than maybe a 24-hour hotline you can call, right? So we're getting there. We're not there yet. As far as financial health goes, right now in the industry, we do have really a combination of professions that aid in money management, which makes it really difficult to really figure out, right? Because you have CPAs, which everyone in America knows, great marketing, obviously, right? The thing is, though, CPAs are accountants by trade. There's many CPAs that don't know anything about taxes or investments, and for the most part, unless they're specialized in money management, you don't want to go to a CPA for money management. You know, maybe to file your taxes, maybe to take care of your bookkeeping, but as far as you know, helping you out of a financial slump, maybe not, right? Um, Attorneys, there's a lot of attorneys that help with creating estates, and we know that we have marriage attorneys and divorce attorneys. We have attorneys that will create entities and corporations and things like that. But can those attorneys give you investment advice? Not many. Are those attorneys going to help you with your budget or your accounting? I doubt it, right? And then, of course, you have the financial planners, the financial advisors, which, you know, when I first got into the industry, I was really keen on getting involved, but I was quickly not turned away. What's the word I'm looking for? Left with a bad taste in my mouth for the industry, because many of the positions and companies that I I sought out and interviewed for or whatnot were nothing more than sales positions, right? Where they come in, they say, listen, if you want to help someone with their finances, that's great. What we want you to do is sell them one of our products. And it's like, okay, so, you know, I do want to help and I do want to advise, but if my hands are being tied behind my back by saying I can only offer them products that you sell, either I have to be a really big fan of your products, which in many cases were very limited, or I can't take this job in good faith, and yeah, sure, I could have taken the job and just made money and whatever, but um, it's not what I wanted to do. And so I stayed away from those organizations. And even now to this day, I meet a lot of financial advisors and planners and stuff like that. And the first thing I ask them is, who do you work for? Right? Because that'll tell you a lot about what it is that they're looking to do. Specifically concerning these insurance companies who unfortunately have what's the word, a loophole in the regulation for financial companies. Insurance companies are for sure financial companies, but the loophole for an insurance salesman to pretend as though they are a financial planner, financial advisor, money manager, which some of them are, right? But the vast majority are not, and they're simply trying to sell you an insurance policy without really having any clue as to any other investment vehicle other than what the insurance company is selling. So, um, that's my rant about that. But anyway, but this chart does talk about the spectrum of financial management and money management, right? It is very possible that you may need someone to completely control one aspect of your financial um, life. There are a lot of examples I can come up with. The most interesting one for me was a nonprofit that I came across in Texas years ago. And the idea was that persons with with mental disabilities were receiving Social Security checks, right? The problem is that these persons with these mental disabilities were not the best money managers. And so this nonprofit sought to basically act as money managers for these individuals. Now, since then, the nonprofit has gone away, and ever since then, though, I've always thought that was a really great idea. And when I talk to people about this, they're usually astounded at that thought that someone, because we have a social net in this country. We always want to take care of our own, and I don't think anyone has a problem with someone with mental disabilities receiving a disability check. But when you think about the fact that someone with mental disabilities trying to manage that check day to day, month to month, year to year, no, they need professional help. No question about it, even if a little bit, you know? Um, but guess what? Um, we all, in some aspect of our lives, want someone or need someone to take complete control of one or two things for us. Um, it might be something as simple as a retirement. Maybe you have no knowledge of education in or want to be involved with the stock market, investing, and stuff like that. So you want someone to completely control that for you, right? And that's exactly what this chart is talking about. And then you move into maybe you manage some aspects of it, but not all of them, right? And then we move into maybe you need someone to take control at times. One of the things that I always had an idea for is something like a financial boot camp, right? So this kind of thing usually comes up when you're talking about losing weight. I think is the most popular one. They've done TV shows and all kind of stuff where they're like, listen, if you want to lose 100 pounds, come to the boot camp. We're going to coach you. We're going to motivate you. We're going to really be your disciplinarians and make sure that you stick to your diet, your exercise plan, and so forth to make sure that you achieve your weight loss goal. And guess what? It works. It works. In this country right now, medically, we know that there are persons who are medically overweight and is causing medical issues. And so, for free, Medicare will offer lap band surgery and all these medical procedures to help the person reduce their weight. But what we don't have is someone to provide the discipline, the nutrition, and the exercise that's needed to um, to make sure that that process stays in place, right? Um, we're just not there yet. There's a lot of people that talk about it. There's a lot of people that want us to be there, but we're not there yet. And the same thing goes for finance. I would love to do a financial boot camp. If you say, hey, I want to save X amount of dollars for this wedding. Okay, cool. Here's the thing. Come to boot camp. We're going to coach you, motivate you, and again, be your disciplinarian to make sure that you stay on top of and do and adhere to this budget to make sure that at the end of this camp, you have achieved your goal, right? And so, again, having someone take control of certain aspects can really help with that. The question is do we have that? Do we have that title now? We don't. We don't. I mean, who do you go to for something like that? Do you go to your CPA? Do you go to your attorney? Do you go to your who do you go to, right? So, like I say, we're not there. We're getting there. Wanting someone to monitor but not control. I mean, medically, you may want a doctor to just kind of check on your heart, but I don't necessarily need them to tell me what to do and how to do it. And I think that this is something that, again, has been talked about. I've seen it advertised and marketed for, but I don't know if anyone has really taken on to it, which is having someone do a financial checkup. Just do a checkup. Come in, let us take a look at where you are financially and just kind of monitor, make sure you're good. That's it, right? And then need advice from time to time. Um, Again, we have spiritual hotlines. You can call and talk to a pastor. They will pray for you, right? A lot of times free of charge. Physical health. We have hotlines. You can call, you can talk to a real nurse, and you can talk to them about your symptoms or whatever, and they can give you real advice. Mental. We have a 24-hour mental care hotline where you can call and you can talk to someone about your mental health if you're having issues, if you're having problems, and they can give you real professional advice. We don't have that for finance. Now, we do have like some TV shows and some podcasts and some radio shows and stuff like that where you can call in and you can get that kind of advice, but it's not available to everyone and it's definitely not available 24 hours a day. Again, we're not there, but we want to get there. That's really all I had. Um, Again, just kind of the state of where we are with financial literacy and our financial health. Um, I appreciate you being on this journey with me, and I know that we are all working to expand financial literacy and help everyone get to where they want to be financially.